So hi, welcome to Building the Wake Web Accessibility and Social Justice. So hi, I'm a software engineer at BBC. I'm non-binary and I use they, them pronouns in case you want to tweet about me. I'm a front-end dev for the most part with great interest in the web accessibility, and I've explored it more in my current role. So please tweet at me if you feel like it. My handle's Awosusi and it's on all the slides. If you can see it, I don't know. So the internet is amazing, as I'm sure many of you know. I can't imagine a world where I was born before it and I didn't have the opportunities that it's given me. It's changed face the planet in many different ways, so let me count some of these ways. So, it's allowed communication over borders and boundaries. I can tweet here in London and someone literally outside the planet can talk back to me. It allows people to organise globally and internationally. So I have loads of friends and allies that I would never have met in my day-to-day life if I hadn't been on the internet. I got my first job through networking. I found out about an event and I went to it, and then I found the person who gave me a job through the internet. And I got into my boot camp through Twitter ads, so at least you know one person who Twitter ads have worked on now. People build amazing things on the web. It delivers on the promise of a web open tool built by all. So other than obvious companies that spring to mind, which are large, there's the Human Utility, which is in Detroit and helps people pay water bills. There's Code Newbie, which helps people to learn to code. And do people know what GitHub is? Like, raise your hand. Yeah, so there's 28 million repositories on GitHub now. So you can imagine the amount of code that's open source for everyone to access. And one of these examples I'm going to drill in on is called NVDA. It's a screen reader, which is a piece of technology that helps you to read your screen out. And it was written originally by Brian developers and is now a massive open source project. It's completely free. Lots of screen readers are very expensive, so it's a really good project. And screen readers aren't just useful to people with visual impairments, it's also useful for people with learning disabilities and illiterate people. And there are lots of other assistive tech, from professional braille displays to screen magnifiers. And people can access information like never before. Of course, everyone knows about Wikipedia, but there's also millions of open academic papers. There's so many MOOCs, which are massive online open courses that you can do. Cool. And arduous tasks can be done really quickly. So it's much more simple to do complicated things. Like everyone knows about Google Docs and all these kinds of things. Well, you can think of how hard it would have been in the old days to have had to originally transcribe all these things out and then copy them for so many different people. So it's made things so much easier. You can do your shopping online and save money. Everything's just easier to do, like long tasks. So basically, if anyone remembers this film, it's having so much power in such a little these small devices that we carry around with us, and people take it for granted even though it's not accessible to everybody. And so with great power comes great responsibility. This is the original slide in case anyone, the original time this quote came up in the comic book, in case anyone knows what this is. But it's lowered the barrier to entry in a good way. So lots of people would think that the internet is just a good thing because of all the things that have happened, all the things that I've mentioned. But it's a double-edged sword. More spreading of information means you can spread more misinformation and more tyranny. So reducing friction has gone both ways. So anyone who's even slightly online has probably heard of trolling. Trolling is making unsolicited and/or unprovoked comments with intent of causing distress, according to the dictionary. And it's a form of harassment. It affects the marginalised most, but everyone is affected. Does everyone know what I mean by marginalised? Yeah, cool. And it can vary from harmful to deadly. So a deadly example is swatting in America, where people call the police on people, and it can be really terrifying because people can have armed response to their houses, like in response to like making someone angry in a game. So that's one example of harassment. But moving on to Diane Abbott, who is an MP in the UK, and she received almost half, so 45.1% of all the abusive tweets in the run-up to the last general election, which means that she got 35% more abusive tweets than any white woman MP, and it was 10 times more than any other female MP. So yeah, she's been at the recent end of a lot of abuse. And there's also Mermaids, which is a charity that supports transgender children and their parents. So Mermaids, their CEO has been targeted online with lots of abuse and threats. Their Twitter account had to block up 20 people a day at the height of it, and there's lots of misinformation being spread online about them. Yeah. And filtering LGBT content has hurt the community because the information support is vital for a lot of LGBT people. It helps them escape dangerous situations and access support to find community. In schools, words relating to LGBT issues are often blocked. So you could search for lesbian and it will be blocked because people assume they're trying to access sexual content when it's often not true. It can just be information about things that you need to live or to escape a dangerous situation. And YouTube as well demonetizes, removes, or age restricts topics, videos that have LGBT keywords in the title. So yeah, people build incredible things that think you get left out. So there's a gift coming up in case anyone is worried about that. So cool. So does anyone know what Beyonce and Domino's Pizza have in common? Shout out if you do. No. We're getting sued. So yeah, under the American Disability Act, they've open sued for having websites that are inaccessible to people, especially blind people who can't finish their purchases. So yeah, you can imagine what it'd be like to want to see Beyonce live in concert or buy even a hoodie of her and it just not being able to finish your purchase because of the way the website's been laid out. And yeah, it's kind of yeah. And on the other side of the coin with money, there's banks. So people have had problems with HSBC, Metro Bank, and HSBC apps, and they made changes to apps and websites that made it impossible for people to access their services. So blind people especially. They told a blind user, HSBC told a blind user that if they couldn't access their bank statements, that they'd send them a video to try and access it. So you can see how terrible they are at times. And the Equality Act in the UK means that people could also sue, but I'm not sure if they have at this point in time. And it's effectively stealing because you can't drain money. So info on the web is often biased or non-existent. So Wikipedia is a good example of this. Like I know I said Wikipedia is a good example of the amazing web, but also it's 90% male as of 2018. And this has led to a few women and topics interesting to them being highlighted on Wikipedia. For example, the last physics 2018's winner of the physics Nobel Prize, she wasn't deemed important enough to have her own page until after she won the award. It was actually in March that they were like, oh no, she's not important enough still. So yeah, and the vast majority of content written about Africa as well on Wikipedia is written by Europeans and Americans. And if you use the internet to search for information about European or American places, or Australia or Canada, you'll mostly be directed to local stuff. But if you try and search for Sierra Leone or Pakistan, it will mostly be people who have created stuff outside of the country. And also, back on Wikipedia, there's nearly 70,000 speakers of there's nearly 2 million speakers. There's nearly 28 million speakers of There's 28 million speakers of Dutch, and there are nearly 2 million speakers, 2 million Wikipedia articles about Dutch in Dutch. In Bengali, there's nearly 70k articles, and there's nearly 280 million speakers of Bengali. So yeah, it's very imbalanced. Also unbiased, there's the in sub-Saharan Africa, they have 10% of the internet users in 2017. But despite this, they only registered 0.7% of the world's domain names, and they'd made 0.5% of the world's GitHub commits, which is like a proxy for like how much people contribute to the internet. France alone has produced 5.7% more GitHub commits and 3.4 times more domain registrations than all of sub-Saharan Africa. So yeah, it's kind of a dire situation. And things often behind paywalls. So have you guys heard of Aaron Swartz? No. Okay. He was a hacktivist and developer who attempted to download a big chunk of JSTOR. So JSTOR is a store of academic essays, which is paywalled. You can sign up to get six free articles a month, but beyond that, you have to pay. And it's I couldn't find an estimate for an average cost, but just looking around, I saw about $15 an article. So you can imagine if you were trying to write a whole essay that you have like maybe 10 to 15 articles, and that would be a lot of money for a person who isn't part of an academic institution. Aaron Swartz attempted to download a chunk, so he was doing it from like late 2010 to early 2011, a few weeks, and then he got caught. And after that, they gave him a fine of $1 million and prison sentence up to 35 years. And he sadly killed himself after this. But yeah, so as a direct result of this and some other protests, people moved to JSTOR moved to widen access to their papers. So lots of older papers, so ones that were uploaded before 1923 and before 1870 in other countries that weren't in the US, are now free on JSTOR directly because of this. So yeah, that's another example of things not being fair on the internet. Oh yeah, and this quote sums up so people with disabilities are the original life hackers, because our motivation is so high. If we don't hack, we often go without. I also already mentioned NVDA, because screen readers are often very expensive. The most expensive one that I can find at the moment costs up to $1,200. And you imagine if you're blind, they have a higher rate of unemployment within the blind community, and you can imagine how hard it would be to be able to afford this kind of thing for a lot of blind people. And even with this innovation coming from within the disabled community, there's a lot that everyone else can do. 97% of the top million websites have errors, so WCAG errors, up to 2 of them for top 97%. So you can imagine how many websites have errors. Most of them are a few key errors, not like a wide selection, if that makes sense. So yeah, we could easily tackle this. So basically, yeah, this is all very unfair, everything I've described so far. Around half of people in the world can't access the internet at all. They have no connection. So it's this year, last year it went just over half, so it was 51.2% who are online. But that doesn't account for data gap, which describes the fact that people had to pay a lot of money for a gig of data for mobile data, which is how most people in the global south, or however we would describe it, get online. So yeah, and the UN target is for 2% of your monthly income to cover a gig of data, but it's only affordable for many people in the global north. And yeah, it's like for South Africans, for example, only 20% of them can afford. Only the richest 20% can afford to buy a gig of data. Okay. And here in the UK, 1 in 5 disabled adults do not use the internet. This means that either they never used it or have stopped using it. But it's going down, but it's still at 23.3%. And 6% of those without a disability don't use the internet at all. Oh no, only 6. What? Oh, sorry, my notes are messed up. But yeah. Men are more likely to use the internet than women. The number of internet non-users is declining, but in 2018, 58% of them were women. So, and in digital skills too, there's a disparity between men and women. So, 61% of those with 0 digital skills are women. And digital exclusion can happen even when you have an internet connection. So, digital skills include things like managing information, communicating, making transactions, problem solving, and creating. The number of people in the UK lacking basic digital skills is decreasing, but in 2018 it was still 8% of people, which is about 4.3 million people who aren't able to do any of those things. So they can't go online and create a picture or go online and buy something from Amazon, which is a scary thought given how increasing digital the world is becoming. And a further 12%, so 6.4 million people, are estimated to have only limited digital skills. So 1 or 2 of those of the list that I described. And there's lots of benefits to having digital skills. So you have increased earnings of 3 to 10%. Your employability can increase from your employability can increase. It's much more likely that someone who has digital skills is able to find a job or to earn money. They have retail transaction benefits because they can find things for 13% cheaper on average than shopping in store. People are 14% more likely to communicate with people online and more frequently than if they didn't have an internet connection. And they save a lot of time as well, because if compared to going into your government buildings or going to the bank, you save about 30 minutes for each transaction that you make. And in 2016, it was estimated that within the next 10 to 20 years, that 90% of all jobs will require some sort of digital skills. 40% of online respondents indicated that being online helps them feel less alone, and disabled people are much more likely to say that they feel this, with 27% of them. 27% more likely to say that. Sorry. So yeah. Oh no. We can make things better and fairer, but it won't be overnight. And we can't fix this exclusion only by making websites better and more accessible. But it's a start, and there are things that we can do when harassment and exclusion is happening. We have the technology to do these things, especially when it comes to accessibility. When it comes to harassment, there's more things that we can do as less things we can do as individuals, but it's still important to do. So humans not edge cases. When we decide someone's an edge case, we're deciding that we're going to exclude them. That's the long and short of it, really. And we shouldn't just think of these things as edge cases. We should think of them as people who are being left out of what we're building. So even though it may not be possible to build something perfectly for every device and every need, it should definitely be the aim to create usable experiences for everybody. So one of the first tips we have is to use semantic HTML. So use the most semantic HTML element for the job. Instead of using a div, check if there's something better that you can use. So nav or a nav or a header, for example. And there are lots of other HTML5 elements that will be useful in different scenarios. Test accessibility software. So tab through your pages, try navigating without a mouse. Does everything work like you expected it to? Use a screen reader like VoiceOver and VDA, as I've mentioned, or try screen magnifiers and color inverting software. Use automated tooling. So there's lots of tools like Lighthouse that's now built into Google Chrome that you can use. Yeah, try and use those in your workflow. Do user testing. So try and test with users with disabilities as much as possible. And real people using your website or app is best. Include accessibility in your planning. So create your sprints in mind and roadmaps of time for accessibility bugs and improvements in mind. Accessibility storms are a thing at BBC, and they mean that we all come together, like with product owners, with testers, with designers and UX, all come together and we work on improving the app as much as possible and testing for bugs that are on the app. So when we find the bugs, we record them and they're prioritized, and sometimes the release can be blocked by the very important ones. So it's a good way of making sure that everyone is on the same page. And build diverse teams. Alex's talk yesterday summed this up a lot better than I can. But for those of you that missed it, never forget that yours and other differences bring valuable things to the table. And for those of you that aren't developers, there's still things you can do. If your internal admin teams aren't accessible to disabled people, you're breaking the law. Basically, your company's breaking the law, and they should be able to, because people won't be able to do their jobs properly by this happening. So make sure that you can test your own internal tools and see if they be just by tabbing through or using an auditing tool to see if they'd be able to be usable. So this is like intranet and other internal tools. You can do basic checks of websites once you know what to use for. So most people know how to navigate a website without using the mouse. Like, no, I don't think so. So yeah, you can tab through. There are guides online on how to do this. You can use screen readers, screen magnifiers, and other ways to invert and change colors as well. And accessibility insights is one tool that can run an automatic script, as well as if you go into your Google Dev Tools, you can also run an accessibility audit through that. And captions are your friends, so make sure to add captions to anything that any content you make, like on Twitter or on a blog, that can have captions. Make sure you add them. And yeah, you can help by making the internet more friendly to people who are like you and like others by helping to create content. And there's lots of websites like Crash Override and Who's Knowledge, which have projects that work on these kind of things. And finally, on the topic itself, the title itself, being woke isn't the end of the topic conversation. It's great as a concept. It makes it sound as if it's a switch you can flip on and off, and it's not a destination; it's a journey. As cringy as that sounds. And it says Derek Featherstone says that accessibility is a process, inclusive design is the goal. So yeah, thanks for listening.